everyone, and welcome to tonight's live virtual program from the Howell Carnegie District Library. Beautiful place right behind me. I'm Renee Chodkowski. I'm Adult Services Librarian here at the library. And thank you again for joining us and bearing with all of the technology issues that are attendant with that. I have a few housekeeping things to share with you before we start. The program's scheduled to run till 7:30. Now that we're starting just a little bit late, might be a little bit after that, but we'll try and be respectful of everybody's time tonight. If you registered for this program and are joining us in the Zoom meeting, you will be able to interact with Renee and ask her questions as she guides you in this cook-along. You can also share any questions that you have for Renee or report any technical issues in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat throughout the program and help with anything that comes up and read off any questions you may submit through there. Tonight's program is being recorded. We will have it up on the library's YouTube channel shortly after this. I say shortly, that's a broad word. Soon as we can on our YouTube channel. If you do not want your video in the recording, for those of us joining through Zoom, please make sure your video is turned off by having that camera icon down in your lower left-hand corner. It'll have a red slash through it. Again, if you have any issues, let me know. I can walk you through it in the chat. If you're viewing our live stream, this is our first live stream, so happy. On YouTube, thank you for joining us. Enjoy watching or cooking along. You can also download the recipe handout PDF from the link that's in the video's description if you haven't done that already. And don't forget to visit our website, howelllibrary.org, to discover more upcoming events from the Howell Carnegie District Library. So tonight's presenter is our favorite local celebrity chef. Renee Chodkowski, the Great Foodini. She believes anyone can learn to prepare healthy, delicious meals. And for nearly 30 years, she has taught people to do just that. Her TV appearances include being a contestant on Fox's Master Chef in 2011, and she is a regular weekly guest on the Mike and John in the Morning show on our local 93.5 WHNI radio channel for the Foodini Fridays. Without further ado, I'm turning it over to Renee so she can take us on a virtual travel your taste buds around the world. Take it away, Renee.
Thanks, Brandy. I want to fly here because that's kind of what we're going to do between courses. But I'm afraid I'm going to knock something over that I can't get back. So I'm going to be a little bit careful. So I see a couple of you are in your kitchen. Is anybody actually cooking along? Just wave at me if you're muted. Hey, Dar. Linda, you going to cook along? Okay, cool. I put in the recipe sheets that you got, the things that I'm going to do start to finish. Everything else I'm just going to kind of, good job, Jules. I'm just going to kind of go through, and I'm going to periodically be holding things up to the camera so you can see. And I'll tell you what this one is in just a second. So we've been practicing a little bit. During the past, what has it been now, 9 months? It's been tricky for everybody. And I miss seeing everybody and cooking for other people and sharing. So we thought it would be, and I miss traveling. Some of you know I have, my daughter is overseas. She's in the Army and she's in Belgium. And with having her in Belgium, we've been doing a lot of traveling to Europe and traveling with her different places, plus just visiting her and seeing her while she's stationed there. And all of it's canceled. What we have been doing to kind of still do a little traveling is traveling our taste buds. Because even though I'm sitting here in my kitchen in 48843, and I don't know where you guys are, Julie, you're in 48116, right? Yeah. You can still get a little taste of someplace else and experiment and try. So I did not put on the COVID-15 trying new recipes at the beginning, but I got to tell you, it was close. So I'm going to kind of tell you some healthier versions of different things and share some of those today. So I have a pretty good lineup, and I'm going to bop around, and just at the beginning, because there's one recipe that I wanted to do start to finish. And I had said that this was going to be a full demo, and that is the Jamaican coconut strips. That is the very last recipe on the back page. And depending on how you have them printed out, it should be the back recipe. So I haven't been to Jamaica in a while, but every time that we had gone there on a tour of some sort, you would pull off to the side of the road and somebody would be making these delicious coconut pastries, is what they call them. When I came home, I did a little experimenting, and this is a recipe that I came up with. So every time I make this, I think of the tours and the trips that we took to Jamaica. And I'll talk about how and why I picked some of these recipes, but this literally is close your eyes and picture yourself in that country with the people that want to feed you, this delicious good stuff. So starting out with, I'm going to pull this up, and this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky here. I'm going to pull this down. You're going to see a little bit less of me, but I want you to see what I'm doing. I have the most important ingredient in this is this dulce de leche. And this is what the can looks like. It's the exact same size as sweetened condensed milk, but it is usually sold in the Hispanic section or sometimes the baking section. And what this is, can you see that pretty caramel color? This is actually sweetened condensed milk that has been cooked in the can for a long, long time. You can do this yourself with sweetened condensed milk. You'll see all kinds of recipes on YouTube to do that. But if you can find it at the store, and typically it's available, maybe not around the holidays, but it's available. You can just pick it up and you've got this beautiful caramel inside. And this is what mine starts with. Yeah.
Julie was asking where you can find it. I see Linda said Kroger's was out, but it was in the baking section. I see Darcy has some. Does Meijer or VG's any other local place that you know of, Renee?
Yep, I pick it up most of the time at Meijer, but my Meijer was out this time, so I scooched over. Walmart had it.
Thank you.
Yep, I have bought it at Kroger, and I have bought it at Bush's. I don't typically get to VG's, but I would expect that you could find it there, Hispanic section or baking aisle. Okay. All right. Next thing is sweetened coconut flakes. A lot of times if I'm watching sugar, I will use half sweetened and half unsweetened. You will be able to taste it with this one and decide for yourself. The final thing, and there's a little bit of a story here, are pie crusts. You'll notice that these are Meijer brand prepared pie crusts. They come in a tube like this, the old-fashioned kind. For anybody who's my age, you guys remember the original one? They were in a flat box, Pillsbury, and they folded over in quarters. Do you remember that? Those were the days. So some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, Great Foodini is using prepared pie crust. Well, the answer is yes. And some of you may have heard this story before, but I'm going to tell you again just in case, because it makes me laugh every single time. My husband and I have been married almost 40 years. My birthday is at the end of November, always around Thanksgiving, and my husband's birthday is December 23rd, obviously always around Christmas. We joked when we got engaged that, yep, we're the ones that always get, kind of gypped out of a birthday. So I made a promise to him as a young bride of 20 that I will never lump your birthday in with Christmas. I will always make you a birthday cake or a special birthday dessert. So that was just great until we had kids and they wound up in 2 sports in middle school. I'm working 2 jobs. He's working 2 jobs. It's December 23rd. The morning of December 23rd, he goes off to work, kids go off to school. His mom and 3 sisters are on their way with their family. I've got to have his birthday dinner done. The house has to be cleaned, all the beds changed, ready to rock and roll and decorated for Christmas because they're coming in for his birthday on December 23rd. So it got to be about 2 o'clock and I'm like, by golly, I'm going to get this done. I was so excited. But I had to go to the grocery store and do last minute things. So he had asked for a pie, the sweet potato pie that year for his birthday. And I thought, oh, the pie can happen, but there is not going to be a homemade pie crust. So I'm like, oh, all right. So I was already Foodini by then. So I went to the grocery store and I bought my Pillsbury pie crust and I hid it underneath, whatever else I was buying, because you can't be Foodini and get caught with a store-bought pie crust, right? So I came home and I made his sweet potato pie. The sisters came, the kids got home from school, everything was great. The house was clean. I made a beautiful dinner. We're sitting down, it's time for pie. Plop the candles in it, bring it out, and we have the pie. We sing happy birthday to you. And I'm like, woo, pulled this one off. I was so happy. So we're sitting down, we're eating, and everybody's having a good old time and everything. And I look over to Ed, and he's smiling at me, and he leans over to me and he says, I gotta tell you, I hit the jackpot when I married you. I cannot believe you pulled this off. You work in 2 jobs. He goes, you're amazing. I hit the jackpot when I married you. I'm like, oh, this is why we do what we do, right? I was so happy. My heart felt good. And then he leans over to me and he goes, and by the way, that was the best pie crust you've ever made. And we laughed so hard. There's 2 things that could have happened. I could have got my shorts in a knot and been sad, but I was like, thank you, Jesus. I never have to make another homemade pie crust for the rest of my life. And that is why to this day, I buy store-bought pie crust because they are so easy. So, all right, I'm going to tip this down like this so you can see what I could. I have this on a baking stone, but you can use any kind of baking sheet that's big enough to hold it. And then all I do is I just want to kind of flatten it out like this, just so it's nice and flat. Then your recipe is calling for 2, but I'm just going to make 1 today. Take about half of the can. You don't have to measure what you taste with your fingers. I'm not telling anybody if you don't tell anybody. And some kind of a scraper or spatula, and you're just going to kind of spread this beautiful dulce de leche or caramelized milk all the way to the edges. 1 can makes 2 pie crusts worth of these delicious cookies. And it looks like it's just starting out as a tart now, but trust me, it gets better. So this I'm going to set aside, and I'll probably make another one later on this week. The next thing, and you can appreciate how easy this is I'm going to get into the coconut. And I'm just going to sprinkle. The recipe calls for 14 ounces of coconut for 2. If you're only going to do 1 at a time, you can buy a 7-ounce package. Most of the manufacturers, this is just Meyer brand, will make a 7-ounce package. So then all you do is you just kind of scooch it out to the edges like this. Just like that. And when you get it, pretty even or whatever, all you want to do is give it a little press right here, just a real light press all the way around.
Renee, Karen asked, where do you get a dough roller?
Oh, you can use any kind of a pizza roller, even a flat glass to do that. This particular one I'm using is a Pampered Chef roller. It's a one-handed, which is really nice for me. I can hold on to it really easily with my arthritis. But sometimes when I'm doing this in a group with a lot of people and I don't have enough, a plastic glass, a flat edge glass will do just as well, like that. Good questions. All right, can you see what I've got here? And I can lift it up because I pressed the coconut into the dulce de leche just so it doesn't flake off. And it also helps it and keeps it from burning once it hits the oven. So, all right, I'm going to flip this back a little bit. So this is audience participation if you're making it or not. Everybody has to say, ooh. I can't hear you, but I'm trusting you. Just like, well, you guys are good. Just like abracadabra for food. Trust me on that. All right, this is going into the 375 oven. All right, so the timing on this, in my oven, it takes about 15 to 16 minutes. I'm going to set it for the lowest end. Depending on your oven, depending on how even the heat is, it might need a little bit longer on that. So, all right, well, that's bacon. We're going to blow through the rest of this menu. So, how many of you have had a tapas party or a wine tasting? You can just raise your hand at me. Wine tasting thing. So, this recipe was developed, the savory herb shortbread. This is kind of an American thing because it was my idea. I needed a unique recipe for a tapas type party but I also wanted something that would go really well with my butternut and French soup. This recipe was part of my audition for the MasterChef show. So I thought that'd be kind of a fun one to bring. I had seen at different functions savory shortbread that you could dunk in soup. And I thought, what if I did a savory shortbread cookie that could be crumbled in the soup or served alongside of it, but it would also be really good with wine. So I took my favorite shortbread recipe, and instead of putting all the sugar in it, I put in a little bit of garlic. I used real butter, Parmesan cheese, Italian seasoning, a little bit of garlic powder, and a little bit of sea salt in it. You'll see on the recipe, it calls for plus more and a little bit of sugar plus more. Once you mix it up, and it doesn't have any eggs in it, so it's a real dense cookie. Once you mix it up, I like to do is put it into a roll shape like this. And then on my waxed paper that you'll see here, this is when I take a little bit of salt and a little bit of sugar. And I just sprinkle that on here. And then I take my roll, and you can see it's got the herbs in it like this. And I just kind of finish making the roll. So the outside of the cookie picks up the shininess of the sugar and the salt. This has already been refrigerated, but if it wasn't, I would want to pop it in for about an hour or so. You can also do it overnight. I do a whole bunch at once and just leave them in the freezer and pull them out. So when they come out, you want to take a thin knife and you cut them about 1/3 of an inch thick, give or take a little bit, and then bake them just like you would a regular cookie. I'll fold this one back up and get it out of the way. So you bake it just like you would a regular cookie. My oven takes about 12-15 minutes, give or take. And you want to pull it out before they start to brown. And what you wind up with is a real nice baked shortbread cookie, very lightly browned on the bottom, but it's super buttery. And it's like you bite into it and it's a cross between a cookie and a cracker. So good with a cocktail, really good with red wine. And if you were to make this in a elongated shape and cut it like biscotti, absolutely delicious next to a bowl of soup. The butternut and French soup was what I had taken in for the audition, but this is really good. And this also makes a very good grown-up gift from your kitchen too. I used to give these a couple of years in a row, just in a real pretty sleeve with a bottle of wine, from my kitchen to yours, and throw the recipe in with it. So that was just a fun little do. So that is a savory herb shortbread, and that's the first recipe on our list. Next,
Renee, do you use salted or unsalted butter?
Most of the time when I bake, I use salted butter and then adjust my recipes accordingly. I am not a fan, and I'm not a snooty baker where you have to use the unsalted. I'm not a fan of having a lot of different things in my fridge. I use salted butter for cooking and for most anything. So I start with salted and then adjust my recipes for that. The key is, if a recipe calls for unsalted, use unsalted. If it doesn't, it's calling for salted butter. And you'll see a lot of European recipes will call for unsalted, but the Europeans are a little more tight in how they bake, and that's what they prefer to start with. So good.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next one is a French radish canopy. We're gonna fly from America to France over the pond. And this is a really super easy appetizer. And I want to throw this in because it's good for Christmas. You can get the green and the red in. Not that there's green radishes, but we're going to use a little bit of cucumber to do it. So what I start out with is a nice baguette. Everybody's selling them now. The key to a good baguette is to buy it and then pop it in the oven so it gets nice and crispy. Listen to this. Hope you can pick it up. You hear that? That's how you know it's crisped up enough. I put it in the oven when it was heating up. So I'm going to take that and put it on my serving tray. And this is something that you can do ahead when you're getting ready for a party. The next thing I wanted to show you, I'm going to hold this up. I know the lighting is a little bit tricky, but this says herbed butter. I keep this in my refrigerator. I am a little bit of a butter snob. For this, I love to use Kerrygold butter. I don't use Kerrygold for everything, not a lot of the baking, but for when it's a key ingredient in it, I like to use it. I'm going to take this off. And on the inside, you can see it's nice and golden. That's the grass-fed cows. It has a little bit more of a golden hue in it. And then I have put in here, I've got fresh rosemary, garlic, fresh garlic. There is thyme and parsley in here, and maybe a little bit of salt. I had a little bit of salt, but I love rosemary. So I took a sprig of my rosemary from outside and I just leave it right in here. It's not doing anything but just infusing that with a little bit of flavor. So I just leave that in there. So in case my sign rubs off, I know that this is my herbed butter. So the next thing on this is to take a little bit of the herbed butter, and I leave that in the fridge until it's gone. And you're going to use, I joke about this, you're going to use more than your mom probably would have let you use, but this is a key ingredient on here, and you want to be able to pull the flavor out. So I'm just going to spread that on these 4.
So to clarify, the rosemary is only just infused by being in the container, but you haven't actually chopped it up and mixed it into the butter?
I did that also.
Also, okay.
Yeah, I did that when it was fresh. I cut it up and put it in. I love rosemary, but I know not a lot of people do. Do you like it too? Yeah. So it's one of those things where you can pick and choose what you like, but those are the core that I put in. And I've given you other ideas, different things that you can put in. You want to be careful if you're using the leafy herbs like parsley and sage or whatever. Too much will make it green, like light green. Taste wise, it's amazing, but color wise, not so much. So, all right. So now we just have buttered baguette, which would not be the end of the world. However, I said that we were going to do the French version. Radishes in France are an art form. I was not able to get French breakfast radishes. I couldn't find them anywhere, so I had to give up. So I just got nice fresh radishes from the store, and I want to cut these thin. If I was doing a whole bunch, I would get a mandolin. I'm just going to do a few for tasting today, so I'm just going to do it on the cutting board. But you guys see this radish is a little bit roly-poly here? I'm going to do something I call a safety cut, and I had to chuckle. I know Brandy's monitoring this. My passcode to get in was safety cut. And I'm like, oh, Brandy's listening to a few of my classes before. I loved that, Brandy. So, okay. So now I'm just going to take, and I'm going to use a nice thin knife, and I'm going to cut my radishes super thin. And the thing is, they don't have to be super thin, but you'll see when we go to layer these on, it does help. The ones that I can't quite finish, I set those aside, and those are the chef's snack for later. All right, so now we've got this on here. I'm just going to put 2 or 3 on the top of each one of these baguettes. Sometimes you might be using an Italian loaf or a little bit bigger baguette. Sometimes you might use 4 or 5. Sometimes you just might use 1 or 2. But you can put them on like this. Now that looks really pretty. Or for Christmas, you could also take the cucumber, leave the skin on. So I usually buy the English cucumbers. And I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to just do a couple super thin. I'm going to cut these in half. And I'm just going to layer one of the cucumbers on top like this. And you can see you've got the real pretty green and red colors for Christmas. I'm going to do that. But to finish this is where you can have a little fun. I'm going to start with a little bit of sea salt. I'm going to do it kind of simple and old school. And then just some fresh pepper. And I like to buy fun peppers. You know, there's one of the things that's been really popular around the holidays are oil and bread mixtures and pepper mixtures and spice mixtures. You could use any one of those on here too. You can also, if you've gotten any gifting salt, like maybe a truffle salt or something like that, that would be something to sprinkle on here and serve. And what's neat is the salt that you sprinkle on at the end will draw some of the moisture out of the cucumber and or the radish, and it makes it glisten. It's they're really pretty, and you can kind of do this. So can you see? I wish I could. I'm gonna just pew them to you so you guys can taste them. So that's the French radish canopies and the herbed butter. The next one is definitely a favorite, and it's the gazpacho shrimp shooters. We had, when we were in Spain, we had gazpacho probably every single meal or snack, and it was so good. And I thought, what, we could do something a little bit fun with that and add a little bit of shrimp to it. So I have been marinating these shrimp here in margarita mix. So this is kind of a combination of Spanish, Mexican, but I've been marinating these in margarita mix. If you trust your fishmonger, you can actually add a little bit of lime to this and make it like a ceviche. But I started with cooked shrimp. It's probably a little bit safer, and it gives it a really, really good flavor like that. The next thing I have is my mixture for the shooter part of the gazpacho shrimp shooters. These are fun for dressing up a party and just being maybe a little bit more fancy, but they're really tasty and really good. So in here, I've got Mexican seasoned diced tomatoes, lightly drained, and regular diced tomatoes, a little bit of sour cream. I'm going to put some black pepper in, a little bit of sea salt. We don't add a lot of salt to things here, so I'm just going to put a little bit in. You could always adjust it. And then I've got it in here. At this point, there's 2 or 3 things you could do. I have what I call a stick blender or a hand blender, and it looks like this right here. I'm going to plug it in, and it's got, listen, I always feel like Tim the Toolman Taylor when I do that. Remember that show? I don't remember what it was called, but Tim the Toolman Taylor. So I have a stick blender, and that's what I can use. I also have a little bit of cilantro in there. If you don't, you could put it in a food processor or a blender, or you could just mix it up with the sour cream here. Just mix it up, and it's a super chunky one. I like this one a little bit smoother, so I am going to just kind of blend it just like that. And that's all you need to do for this one. And then you've got the shooter mixture. I make this quite often, so I know what it tastes, but at this point right here, before you pour it into the cups, give it a little taste. Make sure that it's got the right heat that you want. Make sure it's got the right salt that you want. Maybe you want to add a little bit more garlic. I'm going to show you a canned tomato lineup that you can pick from. But this is where it gets a little bit fun. If you are at a tailgate or an outside party, which we've been having a lot of those, they make little plastic shot glasses. Most of the stores carry them. You can find them sometimes like at party stores. Jonah's Market carries them. Sometimes they're little red Solo cups, whatever. Just find what works for you. And then you can pour or spoon in the shooter part of it. Or if you're like me and you pick up a shot glass from every place that you travel, because there's, I know, I saw you laugh, Frank. You pick them up and then you think, oh, what am I going to do with them? Because I'm too old to do shots anymore. That's me. You do that. So this is a great time to get them out because, again, even though, well, this one is Pittsburgh Steelers. That was from a trip to Pittsburgh. But even though you don't, it might not be the right country or the right place, it's still, you're getting to use something when you did travel, and it makes it kind of fun. So I'm going to put that in here. Or if you want to be shishi fancy, a little aperitif glass. And this one's bigger. If I were serving this, I would serve this with a spoon or a small spoon, and I would put a couple of shrimp in there. So this is how I would finish these. I would put my shrimp in like this. To dress it up a little bit because of the gazpacho, I'm probably going to take my cucumber, and again, leave the skin on so you can get that nice color. I'm going to put a cut halfway through, and I'm just going to slip this in next to it. And you can see you've got a cute little shooter here, like that. If you wanted these to go a little bit further, you could put 2 cucumbers, 2 shrimp on the big ones. like this right here, and just kind of dress it up. You could garnish it with a little parsley or a little more cilantro. So do you think I can shoot? Nah, I can't shoot this and still talk. I know. So anyhow, cheers, but these would be fun. So let me check on my videographer is having a little post-tennis drink back there. If you're hungry, you can come taste. All right, I'm gonna pull out the Jamaican Coke. Oh, it's perfect. Okay, these need to cool before you can cut them. But can you see? See how it's nice and kind of golden, a little bit brown. Oh, can you see the steam coming off around the edges? This is what you're after. The crust needs to set for a little bit. If I was to cut this right now, the dulce de leche would leak right through. So this needs to cool a little bit before I can cut it. So I'm just going to set it down back here. And I will let that, I'll come back to that a little bit later. So that is the gazpacho shrimp shooters in a really tasty, super easy recipe. I'm gonna,
Renee?
yes.
Sorry if I missed it. Did you use a liquid margarita mix for the shrimp?
I did. I
Okay.
used, I don't even remember the name of it. I think
That's okay. I just wasn't sure if it was a powder or a
Oh,
liquid.
no, it was a liquid margarita.
Right, thanks.
And if you don't, here's another little, I'm glad you actually asked that because it made me think of something else I wanted to say. If you don't drink margaritas and you don't want to buy a margarita mix to marinate a dozen shrimp, you can make your own. You can do it with lime juice and a little bit of water. You can put a little bit of tequila in it if you want. But lime juice is the key to that. The ones that we have had before have had a bit of sweetness to it, which is why I marinated it in the margarita mix. But you don't have to do that. But if you like that sweetness, you could even take lime juice, a little bit of agave or a little bit of honey to get that sweetness to it. So, all right. So a couple of other things I wanted to show you, because I've got another tomato dish. For the gazpacho shrimp shooters, canned tomatoes are one of life's greatest gifts. There are so many different kinds out there. I love Red Gold. Red Gold loved me too, which was kind of a fun thing. I did some neat things with them. But I wanted to show you other types and versions of tomatoes. Find the kind that you like. How many of you, and just wave at me, grew up with a Rotel tomato appetizer? Usually it was with Velveeta cheese and cracker. Yeah. So Rotel is a real common brand. It's this one right here. But even the grocery stores have really good ones. So the Rotel has 2 or 3 different kinds. Some are super hot and spicy, and they'll be marked like that, and some are mild. The gazpacho shrimp shooter I used was the Meyer brand diced tomatoes and green chilies. It's one of the smaller ones. It's got a little bit of heat to it, but not too bad. Experiment and find the one that you want. If you do not like spice at all, almost all of the brands, and again, this is a Meyer brand, has a mild version. Look for it to say mild, because if not, if it says green chilies on it, it could very well be one of the spicy ones. So that is just something to watch for on there. So, all right, the next recipe is a full demo recipe, and it's the Red Gold 2-minute salsa. This was one of my entries. I was blogging at the time, and Red Gold found me, and I got to go see their headquarters and what they did. But they love the fact that I used their tomatoes in quick and easy, I called it working mom dinners or working mom foods, but also very, very cost effective. I developed this recipe when salsa had surpassed ketchup as the #1 condiment, but salsa, a little bit expensive, especially how my kids went through it. So I started buying, at the time, the Red Gold cans were 50 cents or 59 cents a piece. I could make salsa for a quarter of the price of what I could pay for it at the store. So that was a big deal to me. So I'm going to start for the Red Gold 2-minute salsa, the Red Gold petite diced tomatoes and green chilies. This is going to have a little bit of heat to it. I drained a little bit of the liquid off, but not all of it. And I'm going to put it in the bowl right here. Okay, the next thing it calls for is a 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. And cumin is one of those things where it's so easy to go from not enough to too much. So as you're measuring this, if you like more of it, add it. I've heard people say that if you add too much cumin, it tastes like dirty socks. And it makes me laugh because I'm like, I don't remember the last time I tried some dirty socks, but it does have one of those fragrances that you think, oh, maybe that's too much. So measure to start and then add more if you want it. A little bit of cilantro is going to go in. If you don't like cilantro, but you like that green, fresh taste, a little bit of parsley is just fine. Because I know not everybody likes cilantro. The next thing that we're going to add is the juice from 1 lime. So I'm going to start with a lime.
Can you move your camera down a little more so we can see your bowl?
Yep, I sure will. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
Yep. So I just cut my lime in half. How many of you have a citrus press, the one that goes like this?
Got it from you, and it's one of my favorite tools.
I kind of remember that. I forgot, Julie. Yeah.
I use it a couple of times a week at least.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I love citrus.
Ever.
So citrus press is really handy. How many of you have a juicer, the one that goes like this? All right. Who's got a reamer? That's the one that you hold it and you just kind of ream it like this. Okay. How many of you don't have any of those? Carol, I didn't see you raise your hand. Yeah. Holly, you don't have any of those. Okay. Here's my little trick. I'm going to put it up for just a second here, and I've got my bowl right here. For those of you that don't have any of them, I'm going to show you one of Foodini's favorite tricks ever. Starts with tongs. Watch this, because you need the juice of a whole lime. But limes are a little bit tricky. You put it right in like this. If you have one of the other things, use it. But if not, look at all the juice you can get out of this lime. Because typically limes are a little bit tricky. They don't always want to give you all their juice. So it's a little bit tricky. So we're going to put that in.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And actually, this was a pretty big lime. So I'm just going to put half of it in. And then we're going to put in a little bit of salt. And then we're also going to put in a clove of garlic. And I have a tendency to like garlic. To peel this, I'm just going to give it a whack. And then typically the garlic just comes right off. So I'm going to pop that in there. And then I'm going to go back to my immersion blender and watch this. Oops, did I get anybody? I think I got your computer. That is it. This is what I call red gold 2-minute salsa. So the obligatory chip. That's good. I probably put another little stick of salt in it. And then it's all set and ready to go. Into your dish, just like that. Look good? Play around with the tomatoes to find the ones with the heat that you like, and it goes together like this. I usually make 3 or 4 cans at a time, and that'll get us through the week for salsa because we do use it way more than ketchup. So, all right, next recipe we're going to switch on to is one that just timing wise, I had to go ahead and finish that. I'm going to show you how I played it, and this is we're traveling our taste buds to India/Great Britain for a. You're going to find that in both places. I'm starting out with some cream cheese, although you could use cream cheese and or goat cheese to finish this. I'm just going to spread this on the plate to start. And this would be the start of an appetizer. And then the chutney starts out, the one thing I wanted you to be able to see, it's solid pack, pure pumpkin. And the other thing you're watching is that it's not the one that's already set for the pie. It's not going to have any spices in it. It's just solid pack pumpkin. And fortunately, unlike I think last year, the year before, it's been readily available. So that's kind of nice. The recipe for the chutney finishes like this. You can see it's got a nice, rich golden color to it. Onions, apples, which, fruit and onions are a big component to chutneys have been cooked down until they caramelize and get a little bit sweet. I do add a little bit of balsamic vinegar, which will sweeten it, and also a little bit of brown sugar. Any kind of a fruit juice. I use apple cider today because I had it. And then the seasonings, with the exception of maybe the mustard seed, you probably have all the rest of them in the house. Vanilla, salt, cinnamon, ginger, ground mustard, cloves, a little bit of cayenne pepper for heat. The whole mustard seed, and it might be a little bit tricky to see, but the whole mustard seed gives it is a little bit tricky to see, but the whole mustard seed gives it a little bit of texture and a little bit of pop. There's a couple of grocery stores. Meijer was one of them, although the Brighton one does not seem to have it right now. But Bush's does, where you can buy real small packets for like 99 cents of seeds or spices to try. So you don't have to buy the big one. But you don't have to have the mustard seed in it. It's very flavorful without it, but it does give a little bit of texture, which I think is really, really good. So that is the caramelized onion, apple, and pumpkin chutney. Great as an appetizer. Like I said, I would put it with a little bit of baguette or crackers, or day after Thanksgiving when you've got leftover turkey. Really good on a King's Hawaiian roll or a nice dinner roll with a slice of turkey, a little bit of the chutney, because the chutney's got this sweet, spicy component. Absolutely delicious for turkey sliders. So that's kind of a fun one. This also makes a really nice gift from the kitchen in those little mason jars with a recipe and maybe a log of goat cheese and a bottle of wine. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to include that one. All right, next recipe is Asian style lettuce wraps, which are really popular right now. And I like them because they're super healthy. And fortunately, the grocery stores have made it really easy for us to do it. I usually will make these with turkey. Sometimes I'll use beef or pork. And the base sauce, which is the low sodium soy sauce, honey, or agave nectar, you don't have to use that unless you want it sweet. I typically don't use that, but you can. It's traditional. A lot of garlic, fresh ginger, lemon, lime, or orange juice. This is where I might add orange juice if I want a little bit more sweetness. And then red pepper flakes if you like it spicy. I love it spicy. And then the filling is just ground chicken, turkey, beef, or pork. You can also do it with cut up chicken pieces, a little bit of that Asian based sauce, sesame seeds, and then for garnish, just some green onions. How we like it most of the time, and I'm going to hold this up so you can see it, are as lettuce wraps. And I found these, I didn't even know these existed, but I got these at Meijer the other day. It was $2.79 for 7 ounces, but I bet there's about 14 or 15 perfect lettuce wraps in here. Sometimes I'll use those little gem lettuces. They're smaller romaine, or even like the outer or like secondary leaves on a romaine lettuce are perfect for the boat. So this is how these go together. Instead of rice, again, a little bit healthier, instead of rice, I've got cauliflower rice. But a little trick when you're cooking cauliflower rice, don't just heat it up and use it. It's a little bit wet that way. If you put it in a skillet and cook it down, can you see how nice and dry that is? It cooks it down and it has much more of a texture, just like rice. So I'm going to put a little bit of my quote rice. If you don't need to watch carbs, it's not that big of a deal. Do use regular rice. Then I'm going to take my ground, these are turkey, and you can see, maybe a little bit tricky here, but I'll hold it up. I've got some black sesame seeds and some white sesame seeds in it. It's just ground turkey. Didn't have to drain it. It was super lean. And then this is going to go on just like this. And then I like things hot and spicy. I know you've heard me talk about it. A couple of things that you can put on. If you like things a little bit sweet, this is a sweet Thai chili sauce. All the grocery stores have it in the Asian section or the international aisle. Or if you like it spicy, this is called sambal olik, and it is super spicy chili garlic paste. This is so good. If you ever have a sinus headache, this is what you want right here. You might suffer for a minute, but you'll thank me later. But sambal oleg, and this is the one, this is how we like it. And then we also finish it off with a little bit of either crushed peanuts or cashews, almonds, something like that. And then you've got a really tasty, super easy lettuce wrap like that. So, in the alternative, if you don't want to eat it like a lettuce wrap, you could do the rice bowls. Everybody's doing rice bowls now. Put your rice in a bowl, put your meat on top, whatever your seasonings are, and you're all set. Now, the one thing with this, you can really make this your own style by adding other veggies. If you like carrots, put some shredded carrots in. You've got a zucchini on its way out the door, cut it up and put that in. You can really expand on this. Or if you've got leftovers, but not quite enough for everybody, have it just straight meat the first night, and then the next night add some veggies to it, put it over the rice. So maybe the first night you've got lettuce wraps, second night you've got a rice bowl. So kale is really tasty in it, and truly whatever veggies you have. The one thing I wanted to make sure I pointed out, because I'm hearing more and more from people that gluten-free is, more and more people are eating gluten-free. There is gluten in regular soy sauce. It has to do with the fermentation. So even though I think I put in the recipe a low sodium soy sauce, it just makes sense to watch that kind of thing. I have been using it in our household because I feel better. I don't think I have an allergy, but I have maybe an intolerance. My joints feel better if I stay away from gluten. So I have found something called coconut aminos. These are sold in the grocery store as well. There's several different kinds. Trader Joe's, which is this brand, has the least expensive. So this is what I buy. But they're coconut aminos. It tastes just like soy sauce. But it's a coconut base. It is fermented, so it's got that nice rich flavor, but it doesn't have any gluten in it at all. So that's just a product that I wanted to share that I thought that you might enjoy. So just out of curiosity, has anybody used those before? The coconut aminos? Okay. In the, you may find it in the Asian section of the store. More than likely, you're going to find it by the vinegars and things like that, because it is a healthy, or sometimes in the health food section. If you do stop at Trader Joe's or any of the health food areas, you'll probably find it there, but it's not hard to find anymore. You just might have to look for it in the stores. At Meijer, they do have it near the Asian section. So you can look there. And they've got different varieties. The one that comes to mind, I think, is Bragg's, B-R-A-G-G-S. They're the vinegar people, but they do it and it keeps the gluten-free. So that's kind of a fun one. So those are, we had a long flight there to Asia. Next thing, and this is a full demo that I wanted to show, is a Caesar salad. And this, I wanted to do my Christmas version of it. So I'm going to pull over the how I do my Caesar salad. A lot of times you see it in a bowl, but I'm going to do mine on a platter here, and I'm combining two Italian specialties, a Caesar salad with a caprese salad. So I've got cut up romaine greens on here. I've got a Caesar dressing. I've been buying Aldi's Caesar dressing. It doesn't have any sugar added, and it's actually pretty tasty, but I add a little bit more Parmesan cheese to it. I've got some sliced Parmesan cheese on top. I took my vegetable peeler and I shaved it, so a little bit bigger pieces. I've got a couple of tomatoes, and a little secret I'm going to share with you is a lemon. I learned this from my girlfriend. Her name is Donna Rosa Anna Maria, when she married Bob. Very Italian. But she told me that she grew up with lemon trees. Her grandma always had lemon trees in the backyard. But Grandma Rosa always took a fresh lemon, and before dressing or putting anything else on it, except for that seed right there, that would not be a good surprise later. She just squeezes a fresh lemon over her greens before anything else goes on. I have been doing this for years, and I can't tell you how often people will say to me, wow, that's really good. It's different. And just because it freshens it up. And there typically is lemon juice in true Caesar dressings. Okay, so we would have a Caesar already, but let's add that little bit of caprese to it. So I have nice Roma tomatoes, and I'm just going to cut these in slices like you would see for a caprese. These slices are probably about 1/3 of an inch thick, give or take. I'm going to just cut right through. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to space these out. I have my salad on a platter because it's really easy to serve that way. And everybody will get a little caprese that way. Everybody as in next time you make it, everybody that's there. And then the next thing I wanted to show you is the fresh mozzarella. I love that they come already sliced now. It's kind of a nice little easy time saver. So I just picked this up at Meijer. So I'm going to just layer the caprese around. If I had a whole bunch of people, I would layer cheese, tomato, nice and tight. So everybody could just grab a couple and go. We don't need quite that much tonight. So I'll just layer those. Another little secret, if you ever buy mozzarella and it feels a little bit wet, like there's a lot of whey on it, you can take that and lay it on paper towel. The paper towel will wick away some of that extra whey and your texture will be a little bit more firm. Sometimes it happens if it's a super fresh batch or super rich batch, that will happen. Okay, so the next thing that would go on a caprese right now would be fresh basil leaves. How many of you still have fresh basil in your garden? Oh, Julie, you and your green thumb. But we don't. We're completely out. Ours went south with that last freeze that we had. So a little thing that you can do is take pesto, which you can keep in the refrigerator for a long time or the freezer. And instead of the fresh basil, I'm going to take and I'm going to just spoon a little bit of fresh pesto over top. Everybody say, ooh. Ah.
Move your camera.
You what?
Move your camera so we can see.
Okay, I'll pull it down. One more thing to show you. Can you see the green? All right, but we still need one more thing, and that is the balsamic vinegar. I've given you a recipe for a balsamic vinegar reduction that you can make yourself, or I did see at the grocery stores that you can buy it already done. It's kind of cheating, but every once in a while, I remember the whole pie crust thing, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So there we've got your Celebration Caesar. This is so pretty on Christmas because, again, you've got your beautiful holiday colors, and it's super easy for people to get a little bit of salad and then to get a piece of the cheese and the tomato. I usually will put the salad dressing on the side like this so they can just serve themselves. So this is your Celebration Caesar. You can see it's colorful, it's fun, and it doesn't have to be just for holidays. It could be for any meal or any Italian meal. So I'm going to scooch this back. We are finishing up with some sweets. We've got a minute. I'm going to talk as fast as I can, and we might go over just a minute. Sorry, Brandy.
That's okay. We started a bit late, Renee.
Okay, thanks. The two desserts, the one is a brigadeiro, which is a Brazilian dessert. Brazil is on my bucket list. I haven't made it there, but I had the wonderful fortune of meeting some people through some business contacts from Brazil. And every time we've gotten together for a function, someone has brought in something called brigadeiro. And I've made chocolate ones and I've shared the recipe, which is a typical version of this, a chocolate fudge ball, and it's super easy to make. And they look like this once you roll them in jimmies. They're just like little truffle. Let me grab that differently. Just little truffle bites like this. And I won't be able to talk if I eat one, but they stick together and they don't melt. So they come across and it's, you're looking like you could use one, Holly. But they're really good and they're super easy. And they start with the sweetened condensed milk I talked about, a good cocoa powder. And I used a dark cocoa powder. you've got two options at the grocery store now, Hershey's version, or they have a Hershey's special dark, either one or a combination of them. Real butter, pinch of salt. And surprisingly, when you mix these up, the sweetened condensed milk absorbs the cocoa and it makes it super easy to work with. At some point, if you're hot-blooded at all, your hands are gonna melt the chocolate a little bit. That's when you take a break and have yourself a little snack. I'm not gonna tell anybody. You don't have to tell anybody. It's just a little snack, but it's a real fun thing. I rolled these in the traditional chocolate jimmies, but for holiday or gift giving, they make them in Christmas version too. And it's just a really nice, sweet snack. You can make these ahead of time and they will keep a good bit in the refrigerator. I think I put on there that it keeps for about a week. It actually keeps for about 3 weeks or so, if they last that long. That's what you got to show. So
You freeze them?
I have never tried freezing them, but based on what they are made of, I would say they would probably freeze pretty well. Carol, if you do wind up freezing them and they work, let me know. I'd be curious.
Okay. I just thought they'd be great Christmas gifts. I'm allergic to chocolate, but it'd be good to give them away.
Oh, it'd be really good. And then you wouldn't eat them.
Nope.
Do you like coconut?
Yes.
There's a coconut version. You can actually Google it. I picked chocolate to make today, but if you Google brigadeiros or coconut kisses, Brazilian coconut kisses, you can get a similar version with coconut. So. All right, last recipe we're finishing up is the Jamaican coconut strips. And I can hold up a little bit closer now. Can you see how it's kind of caramelized? At this point here, I'm just going to take a pizza cutter and I'm going to cut straight through. I'm going to lift this up just so you can see. Once they cool a little bit, you can pick it up, and the back side is going to be super, super light brown, but you're going to want to cut them about an inch apart, give or take a little bit, or an inch wide. I'm just going to cut all the way through all of them. And then this is where it gets tricky, depending on how you're going to package them up. You can either cut through or just take a knife and go through, but this is about the size that we get them on the side of the road in Jamaica. Not that I'm a two-fisted either, but this is about how we get them right here. And they're still a little bit warm now, a little bit soft, but by the time they cool completely, the bottom crust is almost a crispy, cookie, crackery type of crust, and it's absolutely delicious. Let me just make sure they're okay. They're okay. Darcy, did you make some? Did you make some, Darcy?
I did. Hey, where's my, hang on.
Yeah.
I did. And my son has already gotten into them. So we've already.
Oh, good.
Mine are, I can maybe show. See if I can bend this down. If you can see
Oh, perfect. Oh, I can see the, oh yeah, he got the good at it.
big hunk out of them already. So
That's
delicious.
awesome.
Love them.
Oh, I'm so glad. Make sure that you need to, when you cool them completely and then store them covered, they will stay fresher longer.
Covered. Okay.
Refrigerator.
Well, they might not last the evening. So
That'll happen. But these are that kind of fun gifts. So that is my lineup. We got through a lot tonight. I loved being able to answer questions, but Randy, are there any other questions shooting in that we missed?
Not in the chat, Renee. Seems
Okay, good.
a lot of it. Anybody have any final questions?
I have one question. Would you do the brigadeiro like and roll it in powdered sugar?
You know, the powdered sugar, the brigadeiro is a little bit soft for powdered sugar.
Okay.
If it did that, because it's wetter, that like a truffle will roll in a powdered sugar because it's got more butter in it. The brigadeiro is a little bit more liquidy, and I think it would soak up the powdered sugar. That might be something you could try. It's just not traditional. The jimmies or the sprinkles.
I just was trying to think of some without chocolate sprinkles.
Yeah. The coconut ones you can roll in coconut too. When you,
Well, the cocoa powder I could probably eat, but rolling it in coconut, that might be an idea.
yeah,
Okay.
the coconut would be good. That's one of the things I use my truffles for too. So
All right. Thank you.
you are welcome. So I already know this is going to happen. When you go to make these, you're going to come up with a question. I am so easy to find on Facebook or email. You've got my email address, I think, is at the bottom. Yep, you've got my email address at the bottom of that first page. You can email me anytime. I'm a night owl. I'm usually up till midnight or 1. And then, oh, surprise, I'm a morning person too. Highly caffeinated. Send me any questions anytime. Because I know that when you're just watching, it's kind of hard. But when you go to do it, or God forbid, should you go to the grocery store and you can't find something, you can yell at me, let me know, and I'll try to track it down for you. So, gosh, you guys, thank you for joining me tonight. This was fun. I hope I've given you some recipes that you can use somewhere.
Yeah, it was
Thank you.
excellent.
Thanks.
Yeah, so if does anybody have anything else they'd like to say? One last shot? All right, I would like to thank Renee so very much for a wonderful, informative, entertaining, and just mentally delicious program.
Mentally delicious. That's my new favorite line, Randy. Thank you.
Visit our website, howelllibrary.org, to discover more upcoming events from the Howell Carnegie District Library. And just have a great night.
Thank you all. Thanks, everybody.